Shalom, everybody. I have an important topic today, touchy topic. I want to talk about the resignation of the Harvard president, and it's actually not for the reasons you might think. So that's what I want to discuss today. Now, when it comes to anti-Semitism, having reported and taught about it for over 2 decades, I have found that it has been too often underreported, minimized, or even ignored. It usually takes great effort to speak up and expose the lies and the venom of Jew hatred, but it must be done. So when it looks like justice was served, I am the first one. I'm always ready to recognize it for what it is worth. So let me share this with you. But first, I invite you to subscribe if you haven't done so already, and give us the thumbs up. It really helps us for exposure, and push the notification bells so you won't miss my next videos. Now, let me back up to the end of 2023, a few weeks after the Hamas terrorist attack in southern Israel that started the current war. It didn't take long for the world to stop talking about the 1,200 Israelis brutally maimed, burned, raped, and murdered, not to mention the over 200 hostages. And then I think we have Israel has recovered just about half of them, and several have already died in captivity. This is pretty tragic. See, what happened is within a week, much of the planet was focusing on what they have since called a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Now, don't get me wrong, the Palestinians stuck in Gaza are in dire need of essentials such as food, water, medical help, and shelter. Not to mention, of course, Yeshua's salvation. This being said, they are not stuck because Israel is keeping them there, but because Hamas is. And those are the facts. These facts do not matter, though, to our younger generation chanting from U.S. campus to U.S. campus, and I quote, "From the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free," fulfilling their need for social justice and their desire for multiculturalism, at least in their own heads. This chanting is being done mostly by people unaware of the real genocidal meaning of the statement, but, sad to say, also by some who are clearly aware of this being a call for the total eradication of all Jews of Israel. Friends, this has nothing to do with social justice. Let's not be fooled here. University campuses have long become a breeding ground for radicalism, which always includes anti-Semitism at the top of the list. From New York to California, from MIT to Harvard, students have been very vocal and, at times, physical with their disdain for Israel and the Jewish people. This is nothing new. On October 7, 2023, revitalized the oldest hatred and emboldened its most timid proponents. So when Harvard, Penn, and MIT made the news, I was not surprised. What surprised me was the concerted answer given by the presidents of the schools when asked to testify before the House Education and Workforce Committee on December 5th in Washington, D.C. That was surprising to me. Their answers, at the very least, lacked moral clarity. When asked by Congresswoman Elise Stefanik whether calling for the genocide of Jews was violating the code of conduct and rules of their respective schools, the three presidents offered each their own version of a lukewarm response at best, vaguely denouncing racism, and again, lacking moral clarity at a time when firm responses were key. They were needed. They were the only option, actually. Harvard President Claudine Gay responded, and I quote, "It depends on the context." It depends on the context. Those were her words. Forget for a moment that we're speaking of the genocide of Jewish people, and let us ponder. Here's the question: in what context is genocide ever acceptable? What race or ethnic group would ever deserve genocide at any point in history? The obvious answer is none. Yet, according to Ms. Gay, when it comes to the genocide of the Jewish people, context is key. That scares me. Once she had given that answer, unless she made an immediate 180, she had reached a point of no return. She should have been fired immediately. But the Harvard board backed her up, kept her as president for the time being. Then another accusation against Claudine Gay surfaced. She was accused of having committed plagiarism multiple times while working on a PhD. The accusations turned out to be true, and under heavy criticism, she was forced to resign. This was absolutely the right thing to do, but I still wonder if it was the right context. Let me explain. Let me elaborate a little bit. The minute she let out that a genocide of the Jewish people depended on the context was the minute she should have resigned or been fired. Period. That she didn't see the gravity of her statement was bad enough as a human being, but much worse as the president of an Ivy League school, such as Harvard. Then the board backed her up and kept her in her position. Both Ms. Gay and the Harvard board dug their heels. They would not address the elephant in the room, anti-Semitism. What happened next could be called the Al Capone method. In Al Capone's case, not able to get him for multiple murders, the authorities arrested him, found him guilty, and incarcerated him, but for tax evasions. To be sure, I am not comparing Ms. Gay to Al Capone, not at all, but simply making a parallel in the methodology used. Like in Al Capone's case, different means towards the same end. When she should have been fired for anti-Semitism, Ms. Gay was not. But soon after, she was accused of multiple cases of plagiarism connected to her PhD, and for that, she eventually had to resign from her position as president of Harvard. She did issue an apology for her faux pas. Too little, too late. And the firing was deserved, but based on the wrong motive. Incidentally, Ms. Gay has retained her teaching position at Harvard. When it comes to Jew hatred, it is always easier. Think about this. It is always easier to condemn historical anti-Semitism, such as the crimes of the Nazis or even other crimes against the Jews throughout history. Why? Well, because what is done, and it's far enough removed in the past for anyone to argue its veracity, unless they, of course, are historical revisionists, and they're not taken very seriously. The challenge, though, is with modern anti-Semitism because it's happening in front of our very eyes at the very moment. So we have a duty as citizens of the world, as people of goodwill, and certainly as Christians, we have a duty to expose it and denounce it. We must take sides in real time, and this might affect all of us in many ways, in different ways, but it might affect us. The price might be high, but it is the price to pay for doing the right thing. I will not pretend to know where Ms. Gay or the Harvard board members stand in their personal relationship with God. I don't know that. That's for them, between them and God. But for me, as I have been a follower of Yeshua of Nazareth for 40 years, I understand the place of Israel in the Jewish people in God's master plan for humanity simply because I read my Bible and it's all over the pages. I have no alternative but to be grateful to the God who saved me and to love Israel and the Jewish people as much as I can, which I will never, I mean, which to love the Jewish people as much as I can, it will never come even close to how much God loves the Jewish people. In Zechariah 2:8. We will continue to see an increase in Jew hatred for the foreseeable future. The question remains, does the Jewish community or the Jewish people in your sphere of influence know that you have their backs? There couldn't be a better time to be vocal about our support of Israel and the Jewish people. The time is now. This is the time to let the Jewish people know that we care and we want to make a difference. So let's speak up. Thank you for listening. See you next time. And until then, shalom and be blessed.